these streams you can have at some place what they call a hole, and it's a washed out area that's out of the flow, but it's deep.
Yeah.
You can go in there and anchor.
Bring a boat and an anchor back
You
to
can
that.
anchor.
Yeah, deep water. Did you ever hear about Fredericksburg, Falmouth being a hog? What is it, Hogtown? Did you ever hear that one?
Hogtown?
Yeah.
No, that's a good one.
That was a guy I was talking to from some of the historical people in Fredericksburg, and it's hard to find information about Fredericksburg. And I've been trying to navigate the history of Stafford in the Potomac migration versus the Rappahannock migration.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so different. And some of the early families that came into Orange would have come from the Stafford side, but then some from Tappahannock.
In the early colonial period, the two largest, I guess you could call them towns, but really they were big settlements, in the Virginia colony were Norfolk and Fredericksburg.
That was the end of the Deepwater Port, right?
That was the Deepwater Port. And if you were going to go to the James River and go up, settle up that way, you went to Norfolk. And if you were, quite frankly, a little poorer, you would go to Fredericksburg.
Right.
And Fredericksburg got you closer to the mountains. And also, you weren't walking across land that was owned by the Carters and all of these other people.
It was kind of like the backwoods sort of.
Absolutely.
I tell everybody, Orange County was the original Wild West.
At one time, it really was.
And that blows my mind. No, I don't think there's enough connection forget about Zachary Taylor and all them. Talk about his grandparents. Talk about the Tollivers that came up from Snow Hill in Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
My property I found where two families on the Nixon grant, which was picked up after the Watts. And the Watts got their grant from, in 1726 from Lieutenant Governor Gooch.
1726?
From Gooch.
Now wait a minute. Yeah, that's right, because Drysdale, was it Drysdale that got captured by the French? Yeah, I guess it was, because Spotswood was set down in 1722. And I think Drysdale was sent over here. And then there was Gooch, then there was Drysdale, yeah.
I found the patent. When it wasn't a patent, it was a grant. What's interesting is that Mr. Watts, this was the confusion. There's the conversation about, well, they were Culpeper, well, they were Orange, and back and forth and back and forth. And what I found with Mr. Watts was that he was given a grant, as was his son, on the far branches of Black Walnut, which there is no Black Walnut in Culpeper, although names could change. But this area, that would set them in original old Vadiersville.
Yeah,
and west of that.
Orange County's first courthouse was a home on Black Walnut Run.
And that's where he was one of the wealthiest. He had more indentured servant contracts. Even his son signed an indentured servant contract. So the thing that blew my mind, that overwhelmed me, was that when I read the meets and bounds description of his property, you have never seen a more succinct and clear and elegant written meets and bounds. It was...
But I have to tell you now, that does not mean it was accurate.
Of course, but it's absolutely. But what was interesting was somebody took a lot of time to be very clear, and they also cited adjacent property owners, the Lee. And the earliest Lee settlement, kind of, as I can tell, kind of comes up almost to Rhodesville-ish. And one of the things that's interesting is if you go down 20 and you go past 522, on the left-hand side, there's a big old cedar tree that is, you know how the Dollar General store is? Just before that on the left. And I found in an old map, that was the original Lee family cemetery, and none of the stones are there. So I found it on an original map. And the Lees are referenced as the bordering property with the Watts. But the Clarks picked
Now
it up.
your house is the one that's partly or totally a log cabin.
Yes, sir.
Have you done dendrochronology
Been
yet?
working on that. Spoke to the gentleman that does it. I got to come up with about $4,000 to
Yes,
get him out there.
that's
But I'm working on it.
that's the problem.
Yeah, but I'll figure it out. I just have to sell a few things that matter to me to do it. But I've contacted him, and he feels good about it. He says he feels he can date it because I have a lot of oak.
Yeah.
We're a little bit of chestnut and a little bit of oak.